Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire.
Oh, you're trying to bring me down and run me out of town. You're taking what you want, but you can't take my rhythm now. I'm walking to my own beat, just gonna be me. I'm not replicating nobody.
So I'm in a professional office last week, and at the end of our conversation, randomly, I don't even know how it happened, but the name Johnny Cash came up, and this guy was talking about, hey, my grandmother used to cook for Johnny Cash. She was his official chef or something like that. And so she did cook for him. I think he said official chef. And I said, well, that's really interesting because Johnny Cash is the reason I ended up in Florida and doing student ministry. And I said, we'll talk about that another time. But I'm going to talk about that to you today. How in the world did Johnny Cash, the singer, the songwriter, the country music star, have anything to do with me getting to Florida to do student ministries? Here's a scripture for you, though. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future, Jeremiah 29:11. And that's a well-used scripture among Christians, but it's so true. God will use who he wants, how he wants, to get you where he wants. And Johnny Cash was that person for me. When I was in between ministries and in between jobs, I was transitioning. I talk about Rick Eldridge. Saw him in Atlanta airport, and he was going, he didn't tell me this at that point, but was going to do student ministry. He was a musician and going to Orlando to do ministry with Youth for Christ as well. As a result, I got a phone call because he found out I was in transition as well. Johnny Cash had put on a special for the entire nation through Youth for Christ because he fell in love with who Youth for Christ, the organization, was, what they were doing for students on a national and international level, but especially within the United States. And he said, we need to help raise a lot of money so we can get more workers going into communities and schools and doing the work of Jesus Christ and really saving students from a life of destruction. And so Johnny agreed that he would do a special, and that special raised millions upon millions upon millions of dollars for organizations, Youth for Christ organizations across the United States. And they raised about $1 million in Orlando, and that's how 22 of us were hired that year. That was not a good situation for many people because it come to find out our particular organization was the worst in the United States at that time. But as a result, it was where God wanted me. And he took this man who God had plans for his life, not only for my life, but for Johnny Cash's life as well, that he was going to use Johnny in ways that Johnny had no idea. He thought, well, I'm just going to be a musician. I thought the same. I'm just going to be a musician, not just a musician. That's all I wanted to be. And that's all Johnny wanted to be. But he became much more. He became a mentor, a philanthropist to student ministries and probably many other organizations as well. And as a result, 22 of us ended up in student ministry in Orlando. And some of those friendships are still with me to this day. Not only did he do that, but he set a precedence for another great entertainer by the name of Barbara Mandrell. And a couple of years later, they did another TV special nationwide with Barbara Mandrell and raised more money again. And what I want to say to you is this: you don't know who or where the help is going to come from, but God will use whoever he wants to get you where he wants you for the purpose he's planned for you. See, He has planned in advance good works for you to do. Ephesians 2:10. I say that often because I want you to remember it often, that God has planned good works in advance. And He's going to use someone special that you had no idea would have anything to do with your direction in life or the plans that we're going to get you there that God has for those people to intersect so that you can go where God has already planned for you to be and to do what He has already planned for you to do. I don't know where the money's going to come from. I don't know where the people that are going to encourage you or say the right words to you or who are going to give you homes to live in. That happened to me too. Or cars to drive. That happened to me as well. Or the money to go into the organization to pay my salary or your salary. God only knows how those things are going to happen. But I know this, that God sent a man who I would never personally meet to do a fundraiser that would directly affect me and change the entire trajectory of my life. And that guy's name was Johnny Cash. Who's that name in your life that's already shown up and changed the direction that God had already planned for you? Hope this helps you today. Just know that Jeremiah 29:11 is for you. He has a plan and purpose for your life, and it's not to harm you, but to prosper you and to give you direction. He's going to bless you wherever you go. And remember to ask Him for His favor today and His direction, because remember, His yoke is easy, His burden is light. And when you're with Jesus, Jesus will give you a refreshing for your soul. All right, guys, we'll see you next time on Youth Worker on Fire.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.